Hey everyone, welcome to the Illuminate Life channel. And I'm here today with my partner and compadre and friend, Ed Gurowitz. And we are getting ready to launch a really cool opportunity that we're pretty excited about. We're calling it the Practitioner Studio. What it's really about, like just said sort of authentically and simply from me, and then Ed, I want to hear from you, but it's an opportunity 2 times a month to be in a live interaction studio. We call it studio purposefully, where we can come in and disseminate transformational methodologies, practices, distinctions, ideas in a way that we can then use them in our coaching, consulting, and training practices.
The thing I love about calling it the studio is it reminds me, and you were the one who suggested that title, and immediately I went to the Actors Studio, which, had a very famous TV version with James Lipton called Inside the Actors Studio. But the Actors Studio itself is a place where professional actors go, not for training, they go for honing their craft, working with other professional actors. Stars go there, newcomers go there to learn from each other. And that's really what I think we have in mind for the Practitioner Studio. You and I, between us, have about 70 years of working in this business. That's something that, for me particularly, as I get older, I want to contribute. I don't want to take all the secrets when I go. I want to leave them behind.
Well, I've been trying to give away the secrets since the first time I was exposed to, a kind of transformational, what we're calling a transformational experience, which is basically when something goes from looking this way to looking that way. Like I have literally like a new view that
But
opens up
let me
new
correct you.
opportunities.
It's when someone goes from seeing this way to seeing that way.
Yeah. Yes. Very good. So it's a kind of like so I love I might have to go back and go find some old episodes of the Actor Studio because I had in mind, I remember when we were first talking about it, I said, I want to do kind of a mashup of mentorship / masterclass. So it's not just about, ooh, we have stuff to teach you. You have stuff to teach us too. I mean, there's consultants and trainers out there. So really a place where we can come together and create and learn from each other and take this. It's got a low bar of entry comparative to big licensing fees and all these other like crazy structures for using ideas. It's like, no, let's bring a bunch of professionals together and learn together, create together, use the opportunity of each other's experience to find more and better ways to make transformational type coaching, consulting, engagement really honestly ubiquitous. I mean, it's like all I've ever been about. Even the Being a Leader project, which I'm now infamous. I was famous, now I'm infamous for doing. But the whole reason I said yes to that and, spent 10 years of my probably some of the prime professional period of my life dedicating to that is because I saw, okay, wait, we can get this sort of ontological approach is how we talked about it there, but available in universities worldwide. So I've really been about this thing of getting these kinds of approaches and ideas where we're really, to me, it's more the source of things. Like we're learning like how I can learn all kinds of techniques. And I believe in that. It's great. But to learn also like how I can just see it a little bit differently and what that can open up and then how to actually move inside of that seeing. So this is a piece I love, love, love that you bring all the time, which is it's
Well,
titled
and
your
the thing is,
practice, transformation
I
through
have
practice.
I have nothing wrong with techniques and tools and even tricks,
Sure.
but without an empowering context, they tend to degenerate into manipulations. So the thing about the transformational approach, and that I tried to get across in my book, was it's been around for thousands of years. People who think that this is proprietary technology, it's intellectual property, it's some of you should have to license. We're not licensing anybody. By the way, if anybody watching was worried about that or thinking about it or thought, here's a good place to go for a license, sorry, we're not licensing anybody for one very simple reason. This technology is public domain, this methodology. It has been for thousands of years. Aldous Huxley called it the perennial philosophy. We're not
And when
here.
you say that's one of the things we want to offer in this studio is helping people to, like you've done so much work. You're so good at citing kind of more, I would say, the original sources, like where these ideas come from and how they have moved and evolved through history in the public domain. And, anyway, so that's one of the ththings I know a lot of people I've
And
worked with.
in every area, because what we're dealing with here is, I don't wanna say esoteric, because it's not secret, but it's extraordinary. It's outside the ordinary life of figuring out what to do so that we can have what there is to have. This is about being. You use the term ontological, that's the technical term. And throughout history, it's interesting, I'm reading a history of Africa written by an African woman, and she shows from the very beginning, almost the beginning of time, how every time there's a spiritual breakthrough, whether it was Jesus, whether it was Muhammad, whether it was Lao Tse, it gets turned into a priesthood. It gets turned into something that's kept secret. This should not be secret. This ontological approach is the key to breaking out of any limitations we placed on ourselves. Not any limitations. 5'9", I'm never going to play in the NBA. But if I have a limitation I placed on myself, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough. This is the key to breaking out of those things in a way that can't happen if you're trying to. I was working with a client yesterday and talking about, a deep belief she has that she's not good enough. So I said, we worked it around to an ontological question. So who are you? Well, I'm not good enough. No, that's not going to work. You can't do that. You've got to create yourself from a blank canvas. This is about getting to the blank canvas.
Well, and that pulls up, so you use the word this about empowering context, and I'd like to actually shift. I don't really use that word empowering context anymore. Because what I've seen is I've studied it more and gotten a little deeper into it, as I would say intentional, like a context that is intentional versus a default, right? That is
I'd say
created.
designed, but yeah.
Yeah, design, that was it. I was just trying to think of the word that you use. Yeah, designed. And that's only one aspect of context. Like one of the things that I've learned, especially in the last 2 years, is I've been really taking apart these ideas. Almost anybody out there listening who knows me or has been following me knows I've been questioning everything pretty intensely for the last 4 or 5 years, but especially the last 2 since my book came out. And it's been really fun because I'm learning the depth and breadth of the ideas that the technology that or the methods that I was given and taught, where it really comes from, and the much wider use and application. And that piece has been really fun, which also brings me to the other thing. Those that know me know that I'm pretty dang passionate now about the safe and ethical use of transformational methodologies. Some people think I've been like out to destroy them. No, totally the opposite, actually. More out
That's good
to,
because you couldn't if you tried.
I couldn't if they're, first of all, they're not mine.
What you are doing in terms of the safe application of it, you can be done, has to be done,
Yeah, and
because
we need
otherwise
to.
it destroys itself.
Exactly. And we do kind of have, I notice this in a lot of areas of our society, we sort of have this childlike belief that if it's good, it can't be used to harm. At least I did. Maybe I'll just speak for myself. I did. It's like, oh, because my whole exposure was mostly like, opened up things for me. I got out of a relationship that was really destructive. I have a fabulous, husband that I've been with now for 26 years. And, we have, as we've navigated through life, the tools of what we kind of call transformation. I think that's limiting. I want to think of like, anyway, more words, but have been useful and helpful, but they've also been harmful in ways that I didn't understand and didn't, because I didn't know to look.
And it comes with the territory. A
Right.
knife is a very useful thing for cutting meat, carving things. It can also be used to kill somebody. The tool itself doesn't care. The tool itself is value neutral. Even esoteric tools like transformational methodology, in and of themselves, are value neutral. If you don't put them in a designed context where they are beneficial, then they stand the danger, as we've seen with, in your studies, in your book, and in other people's books that I've read, cult after cult after cult, where people die, where people, take poison, where people, jump off cliffs. That's not
All of
because
the
of the
most extreme
that's not because
cases.
of the tools. That's because of how the tools were used for the aggrandizement of one or two individuals.
I do think there are some tools that could be retired because not so much, yes,
You
because
don't
they're
see a
harm,
lot of buggy whips
mostly because
anymore.
we're learning. we're learning so much about trauma. We're learning so much
Sure.
about the brain that there are some I watched, I think I told you the other day, I watched the movie Semi-Tough, the parody, the 1977 parody with Burt Reynolds. It's a parody on the S
Many
Train.
people think that was a football.
No, no, no. They hardly talk about football. And it wasn't just on the S Train. That just happened to be what was like, super like rock star popular at that time. But it kind of spoofs the whole kind of self-help, new age movement. It was really, really, really funny. But I was struck watching it that there's so much that I've seen in the last couple of years that it's just ready for evolution because we've got so much information now that we did not have even 10 years ago
Well,
about
and
the
and
brain.
you're bringing up something critically important because tools by themselves don't get retired unless one of two things happens: a new paradigm in which that tool is no longer useful, or a tool that does the job better. So, like I said before, we don't see a lot of buggy whips around unless you're in Amish country because there was a paradigm shift away from buggies to cars, and the buggy whip
It wasn't a
became
paradigm
irrelevant.
shift, it was a technological shift.
Well, paradigm
Technological
shifts can be technological.
well, technology can create a paradigm shift.
Okay, you're
I mean, I
saying
don't
the
know,
same
chicken
thing.
and the egg here, we're probably in a
Well, no,
conversation, but
it's not chicken and egg. It's both arising simultaneously. We talk about the Stone Age, the Bronze Age. Well, that didn't happen overnight. More and more people got the technology for making bronze, and as they did, more and more people abandoned stones. So it one of the things that I know we'll emphasize, because it's what my whole book is about, is that transformation or designing a culture or designing your own being isn't an event. It doesn't happen overnight
or in a weekend.
or in a weekend or in even 2 weekends. What those programs do at their best I designed and led a program for years called Executive Excellence. It was 4 weeks over the course of a year for senior executives. Even 4 weeks over the course of a year with lots of work, applied work in between. All it did was set the stage for to design and execute a new set of practices. Transformation is a practice. It's not an event.
Such an important piece, which is, I think, also why we kind of came on the idea of this studio, which is, we've got it set up. We are inviting people on for a 3-month commitment to, 2 sessions a month that'll be recorded. People can, they can be there live, which is obviously preferred, or watch the recordings. And then if it's your jam, if it's right for you, then you can commit to the 6-month or the 1 year, right? So, and we did that really deliberately, in part to be a demonstration of safe and ethical sales and practices, but also kind of the thing you're saying is like, hey, come in here. We're going to practice. This is about practice and engagement, learning and growing, not about an answer and not about, while at different times we'll offer tools for sure. I can see that the transformation triangle is one I already have on the list to make sure that we really dive deep into how to use that and how to apply that with our clients, how to apply that with our coachees, how to apply that with ourselves. So that's really the studio, what it's about. Let me ask you, I want to actually take a moment to kind of go through some of the key points that, we put up on the landing page that we anticipate covering or bringing about or bringing up in the conversations. So one is methodology integration. Translate core transformational principles into so our constituents that come and play with us, what we want to do is give these ideas away so that people can really integrate them in their own way through their own practice. And
And I'll tell you, Ann, I've been in the business a long time. I was originally trained in research, brain research. Then I became a psychotherapist, got a lot of training and certification there in transactional analysis, Gestalt, bioenergetics, family and systems therapy, all kinds of stuff. Then I went into working in organizations and got a lot of training in organizational theory, management versus leadership, all this great stuff. You asked me today, what methodology do I use? And I can't tell you because transformation informs all those things. I'll pull stuff in from everything I've ever learned and use it as a way of bringing transformational thinking to people. So, it's very important. One of the questions people have already been asking me is, well, I've been in the business a long time. What do I need this for? And the other side is I get people who say, well, I'm just really starting out. This is too advanced for me. No, we're going to meet you where you are in terms of your development. There's going to be direct coaching from Anne, from me, and from other people in the program. You'll benefit from all that experience that will be there in the room. So it's really important what you're saying about methodological integration. We are not pushing a methodology. We're putting it coaching, consulting, leadership development, talent development in the context of transformational work.
Yeah, well, and then you bring in my whole wheelhouse in addition to that of training trainers, presentations, how to actually write your book, communicate your ideas. All that's my favorite thing actually, is that aspect. Most of my clients have been literally guru level clients, and I'm the one in the back of the room that's coaching them on how to actually deliver that 25 years of knowledge in that segment and what piece to deliver where, when, and all that. So there's a lot of that aspect too that I think as coaches, and this I would put out to those that have a lot of experience, and I'm one of them. One of the things, those of us that have a lot of experience, coaching, consulting, training, whatever, we are the ones that overload people. We're the ones that don't, that tend to pull too much stuff, right? So what's the thing that goes against with what that client's dealing with? And we are living in a time in which technology and so much is changing in our world. We're in the midst of major transitional times in so many different domains. So how are we gonna take this wisdom, this ancient wisdom in a way, and all this wisdom that's evolved or been developed and evolve it with the times that we're in? So those are all kind of questions that I'm hoping we dive into. And like you said, we're going to meet people where they're at. So Ed and I are coming with a lot of thoughts, a lot of questions, a lot of places that we want to grow and develop. Actually, this is my favorite thing about working with Ed, is that
And that's the other important piece. The cobbler's children have no shoes. Coaches don't have coaches, especially when they get very advanced. I have I have you and at least 5 other people in my life that I look to for coaching.
I
And
always jokingly say
actively
I have a
seek in
spiritual teacher, I have a cadre of coaches, and I have a therapist or two.
there you go. Yeah,
So
so
one that I officially work with, but several on call, like, you're one of my therapists, or one of my
exactly,
psychiatrists.
exactly.
So another piece that we have on our list that we intend to bring into the conversations is system level thinking, mapping stakeholders, incentives, culture dynamics to design interventions that actually stick. And I know this is a big piece in your work, is creating, culture shift has become almost a little bit cliche, but it's a big deal. Do you know that? One of my favorite teachers I worked with for many years used to say behavioral reinforcement is always and only ever short term. So if I have a set of tools or techniques or an SOP or something that I'm going to bring, and then I'm going to reinforce that, but that's very short term. What we're actually talking about when we talk about transformational methodologies is working with people on how they see things so that the behaviors and the SOPs and those things become part of their own creation. It's not something dictated that they then will follow or not, depending. So to me, that's when we're talking about systems level thinking, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. But what would you add to that in terms of when we under that banner?
Every company I've ever worked with, and I've worked across industries and around the world, where we've started was with something that wasn't working, which they identified as a pattern and never stopped to consider that it was actual. See, here's the shock. It's not so much anymore because people use it a lot now. But when I started out, the shocker was people would tell me how their this part of their business is going to hell in a handbasket. And I'd say, yeah, that's exactly what it's designed to. If we don't change the design of it, there's an old Chinese saying, if we don't change our direction, we're liable to get where we're headed. And you can't change direction by changing patterns, putting in new, what you used the term a minute ago and I lost it, but putting in new processes, new ways of doing things. Sure, that's good. That'll help at some point if what you're dealing with is a pattern, not a systemic issue.
I always use the metaphor of building a house because I happen to be building a house right now, right? So when you go to build a house, the first thing you do is clear the land, and then you put down a foundation. And then you can have a house. I mean, many of us have seen houses that were built 100 years ago, 200 years ago, but there's still the foundation. So the foundation dictates the shape of the house. And there's some pretty funny shaped houses out there as they try to expand past that foundation without really dealing with the foundation. And even when we add pieces to the foundation, I learned this because my garage foundation turns out is separate from my house foundation. Now, this is good because when the garage sank, it didn't pull the house down. So, but I laughed when that happened because I was like, "Oh my gosh, this reminds me of so many,
Yeah.
groups and organizations I've done. Okay, we have this
Lest
thing,
anybody think
let's add this."
that's just a metaphor. It's not. The foundation on which organizations are built and the foundation on which coaching relationships, consulting relationships are built is relationship.
Mm,
You can only go so. I'll give you an example. It's in the book too. I was working with a large public agency and we were brought in by the chief of staff of the agency. The director was lukewarm about what we were doing, but he wanted to empower his chief of staff, so he agreed to it. So the relationship we were building on to transform this massive public agency, I mean, I'm talking about a city the size of Chicago or New York. It was neither of those cities, and an agency that's responsible for everything that moves, trains, buses, planes, trains, and automobiles in the city. We were there we were brought in to create a new culture, which is another name for transformation. Well, but the relationship we had with the CEO, which is the crucial relationship in that type of work, was this big. And the job was so big you can't see my hands. So we reached a point where we couldn't build anymore. Just like your house or a house that's on a funny shaped foundation, you get to the point where you try to build beyond that foundation and garages start falling down.
yeah,
So
right.
so this is critically important stuff when we talk about the design of organizations and the design of human beings.
Well, it's so great what you said. I think what you're talking about is extra important right now. As I've already referenced, we're in a time in history, as it were, right? Someday it'll be history, where there is so much change happening and it's happening faster and faster and faster. I know everybody's out talking about the AI boom and what that's going to do and what it's going to be and da 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 da. And the only thing I have to say about it is we don't know. We don't know. And we'll find out, and we're going to be finding out quicker. The rollout of AI in terms of our society and its impact, one thing about it that seems already true is it's going to be faster than the rollout of the internet. So the internet, I mean, I grew up before the internet, before we were on the internet all the time. I mean, it was being created off in some university somewhere, but I wasn't, as a schoolgirl, I could
I'm
not get
sorry.
on the internet.
As an old guy, it's very funny to hear you say that. I mean, I grew up with phones where you picked up the receiver and talked to the operator and told her what number you wanted.
I had a party line once when we
I did
first
too.
moved
I
to
did
town where
too.
you have to get up and see if somebody else in the neighborhood was on the phone. Yeah.
That's right.
But
Exactly.
that,
But
I
no,
mean, we think that's
you're
fast,
absolutely
folks.
right.
It's going even faster now.
Oh yeah. Well, you know Moore's law, right?
No. Well, if I do, I don't know it's
Computing
called that.
power doubles. I'm going to butcher it, but I think it was something like computing power doubles every 2 years or something. But he was pointing out how much faster technology changes. The move from hand plowing or a stone plow to steel plow took hundreds and hundreds of years. The move from the first computer I had,
Right.
which was this monster thing that, right now my iPhone has more power than that computer has. That took 40 years. So you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. We don't know what's coming.
But so to
And the
me,
the
this is one
question
of the
is
reasons.
not being able to predict, it's being able to be ready to move agilely, to move freely.
And to be resilient, which, as somebody
That's the
who's
word I
been
was looking for.
with transformational methodologies for, 25 years or whatnot, to me, that is one of the values of those tools is they do help us to be more resilient. So just I'm just going to pick on a couple others here that I was particularly excited about, which is language in action. So, how to upgrade the conversations that you lead, right? Clarifying commitments, accountability, follow through. So, those kind of tools, and these are all sort of tools that I think we all know like those are good. But as you get into different situations, different coaching situations, consulting situations, you have to be able to adapt to the language of that organization, first of all. You have to be able to adapt for the generations. I was doing some really great onboard training with a large retail company and their district managers. And the biggest thing they're dealing with is all the district managers are baby boomers to Gen Xers, which is me, talking to Gen Yers and millennials. Like that was one of the biggest things when we got into this
It's worse
section.
now. Have you heard of Gen Alpha?
Are we
That's
starting
the
over?
youngest ones,
Yeah.
and they speak a language that they don't even understand.
How
You
old are they?
ask a young kid, teenager, high school kid, what does
Okay.
6'7" mean?
Good golly.
Everybody does it. It's on shirts. It's everywhere. Nobody knows what the hell it means.
My
They're
goodness.
inventing their own language, and they're
Wow.
doing that because, in part, I believe, I don't know this, but I believe it, because language has been so weaponized
Yeah.
in the last 20 or 30 years in the name of what's pejoratively called political correctness, in the name of some very good things, but then it's used to cancel people, it's used to ostracize people, it's used
Yeah.
to insult people.
Yeah. Well, it's
So yeah,
weaponized.
we're going to do a
I mean,
lot. We're
that's
going to do a lot of work on language.
yeah, when we talk about to me, that's and as I've been deconstructing transformation, as it were, that's one of the biggest things I've learned is the weaponization. And what does that look like? So, yeah, I know how to use the screwdriver to screw something in, but, what does it look when it's been weaponized? And hopefully I want to be able to see that before the damage is done so that, either as a practitioner or a consumer, I can step away.
I
So,
agree with one caveat.
mhm,
One of the things I know we'll talk about a lot in this program is that transformational work, both personal work, my transformational journey, and organizational transformation, and coaching people in those two arenas is an art of correction, not perfection. Mistakes are the greatest gift we have because if I insult you and catch myself, realize it, or you bring it to my attention, the thing to do is clean it up, not justify it.
well, yeah, and learn from it. You brought something to me today. You called me today and said, "Hey, I had to clean something up behind you." And I was like, "Oh, wow, that's really great." And I just boom, boom, boom. Like, no, it's not a
And
yeah.
and well, I lost it. There was something you just said that's really important. People might learn from success if they take the time to stop celebrating long enough. Failure is the greatest teacher we have.
Okay, so one of the things y'all are gonna see is you're gonna have fun watching Ed and I argue ideas because I totally disagree. It's not that I disagree with failure. I've spent most of my life, you would tell my teams, like, look, one of the things you're gonna have to deal with around me is failure ain't a problem. So, the only place you'll have a problem with me is if we fail at the same thing over and over. Like I want to have our failures be bigger and better and whatever. So that
My
was my
version of that
philosophy
is
for
I
a
want
long
to
time.
make no mistakes.
I wanna make new mistakes, exactly. I used to go in, I would host these events at these super five-star hotels that are really used to accommodating, but in the hospitality industry, they were also very trained to say yes. I would have to train their teams to say no, actually, because I'm like, "You need to say no sometimes." But I used to tell them all the time because when you tour, they're giving you the yeah, yes. Of course, yeah, yeah, we can do that, and yeah, yeah, we can do that, and I'm like, "If you tell me yeah, yeah to everything I say, I'm probably not gonna sign this contract because first of all, I don't believe you, and but most of all, what I want to know is how are you going to deal with a mistake when it happens? Not that you're never going to have it happen. So all of that, yes, yes,
I
yes, yes.
appreciate what you said at the beginning of this, but you and I don't disagree at all.
No, hang on. We haven't gotten to the disagreement. That was the agreement.
Okay. All right.
So the disagreement part is in the last several years, I've really had the opportunity, and this is as I've led this women's group and gotten more and more connected to what I call the feminine side, which is I've really gotten how much we've missed the value of celebration and how much we've missed the value and opportunity. I had 2 coaching clients today that if I accomplish nothing with these 2 women in the next 6 months, but teach them how to actually celebrate when they accomplish something, I will be totally satisfied as a
See, I
coach.
knew we didn't disagree. You shifted the ground on me. I wasn't talking about whether one should celebrate or whether one should succeed. I'm saying you learn There is more to learn from failure.
See, I don't know if that's true. I think I'd have to spend I mean, I've learned
Well,
a
we'll
lot from some of my
we'll
successes now
probably
that I
talk
will
about it.
bother to look.
Just look with those 2 people that you just talked about. What is there to learn from their success? Because they're not gonna repeat it. They're not going to be in the same situation again. They may be in a similar situation. And I didn't say there's nothing to learn. There's some stuff to learn from success. But it also tends Steinbeck has a great quote, which I'll dig up for you, about that success is the greatest enemy of progress because it makes us complacent.
Don't agree. I just don't agree.
Go argue with Steinbeck.
Well, I don't even know Steinbeck, but I know
John
Ed.
Steinbeck of
So
Vice and Men?
I don't know him. I believe he's dead, actually. Is he
Yes, he
not?
is. That's why I told you to go argue.
Okay, well, I'll argue with him later. And that's very fitting for those times. But I'm sorry, you can learn. I had a very dramatic situation last week, as you well know. I learned lots what got me into the situation, but I've also really had some very powerful insights that are really moving me from where I succeeded in disentangling,
No question.
where I succeeded, but I didn't
But
know
bear in
to
mind that that started with a failure.
well, the failure had me looking, right? But this
Exactly.
I'm just saying this I don't think we can say because I don't think in general we have had much practice at learning from success. I just don't. I
I
think that
agree.
the
I
trope
agree.
has been for so long, no pain, no gain, that we haven't really done a lot of looking because what's
Stop a
super
second.
interesting.
Folks, if you're enjoying this,
Oh
I
yeah,
got
you
two
gotta
to
come
do things.
play.
You're gonna see more of it. And if you wanna have some real fun, jump in when
Yeah.
we do this, because we will
Yeah.
do this. One of the great things about working with Ann is, the degree to which we see things differently. This is a difference of perception, it's not a difference of substance.
Right.
I
Yeah.
think we need to wrap up.
Yeah, we do. Okay, so that's to be continued, and I'm going to send you this great New York Times article I read about what actually sticks with human beings, which happens to be their successes. So I'll go find it. This is the only reason I haven't canceled my New York. I've saved.
If
So
you'd
yeah,
also live
folks,
lacrosse play.
we'd love for you to come and play with us on the studio launch on November 18th. You can join. We're offering a nice discount for people who are part of that inaugural launch on November 18th.
Say one thing. When I wrote my book, my attention was on my legacy, and I wanted my legacy to be demystifying transformation, getting it out of the
Yeah.
arena of mystery, of religion, of priesthoods, secular and
Hierarchical,
religious.
these kind of
Yeah. Get
hierarchical.
it out of the hierarchy, get it out of the licensing and all that stuff. This studio, for me, is an opportunity to continue this work. I've learned a tremendous amount in 50 years in the business, and I want to share that with you. So come join us.
Wonderful. All right. We'll keep letting our folks know all the places they can play. Thank you, Ed. See you
Thank you,
soon.
Ann.